You are listening to the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks.
War Eagle Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson. We got some football to be talking about. We got lots of players coming and going. We got some, finally, an offensive coordinator kind of within our sights. Can we nail him down? And maybe by the time you're listening to this, maybe we already have. So, Jared, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I feel like my head's spinning. It's been typically off season is not a lot happening, but this has been more exciting, if you will, than the season itself. It's been a crazy past week and a half, I'd say.
Oh my gosh. I mean, everything from, this is what's happening with these players to the exact opposite. I mean, it's just crazy. Like, it seems like nobody has their facts straight, and one player decides to stay when you think that they're already gone, and you're like, what the heck is going on here? And it's just, I kind of still chalk it up to lots of players are using this as their free pass to transfer anywhere, and they're just kind of playing the game, seeing where they can go, where the best place for them. I saw somebody kind of relate it to, what if like in baseball, there was, free agency for every single player. Yeah, it's going to cause some chaos. And I think this has definitely caused a lot of chaos in college football. I mean, there's so many people jumping in and jumping out of this portal. So it is what it is at this point.
It is what it is, my friend.
But let's kind of start out with talking about Bo Nix entering the transfer portal. I do want to say this. I mean, it's kind of sad to see him go after how much promise I feel like he had. And to some extent, we saw some of the success at Auburn. He had lots of ups and downs throughout his career at Auburn. I think throughout it all, one of the things that definitely stands out is just how much he loved playing football at Auburn. It was definitely a dream come true for him. He poured his heart out for this team. And I saw some people saying, Bo's a quitter. And I'm like, dude played on a broken ankle. Like, I don't know what you were talking about, but the dude played on a broken ankle and has played probably longer than I feel like most players would, with how much crap he's gotten. But I mean, I've probably been on the side of Bo Nix, kind of a supporter of him, probably more than a critic. But Jared, what's kind of your thoughts on Bo Nix entering transfer portal and where that kind of leaves Auburn?
Well, I made a comment I think a month ago and said Bo's not transferring. He's Auburn through and through, and I was wrong. And this is not faulting him at all. Bo's got to do what's best for Bo. I hate to say that because it could eventually hurt Auburn, but at the end of the day, coaches and athletic directors and everybody for a long time has done what's best for them and or the school, and Bo's got to do what's best for Bo. I am surprised it happened.
What surprised you about it?
Because I think a lot of kids. Bo grew up, and Bo was unique in the fact that he grew up a huge Auburn fan, and he was good enough to play at Auburn. I grew up a huge Auburn fan. No way I was playing at Auburn. But I couldn't see myself leaving Auburn. And again, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I get all that. I'm not knocking Bo. I just couldn't see myself leaving Auburn. And so I felt like he wasn't going to leave Auburn. One of the sad things about Bo is it's almost like he peaked like the first game. I mean, he had that comeback drive. Absolutely, he won that game. And, we saw, oh, man, is this going to be what it is? And almost that ceiling got set too high in the beginning that you really just couldn't meet as a true freshman. And we could never get back to that on a consistent level. And he is absolutely not to blame for all of that. I think we all agree the offensive line did him no favors.
Yeah, I mean, we said it throughout the season. It was this combination of the offensive line and then wide receivers. I mean, there were certain games where Bo had the right pass. You passed it to the right spot. The wide receiver just dropped it, and you can't do anything about that. And even still, I think Bo Nix, he kind of finished around, if you kind of look at his QBR, it wasn't the worst. It was around 33rd in the nation. It was around 70.8. So he was kind of upper, parts of the college football world, but not anything that was, the Spencer Rattlers or the Bryce Youngs of the world. And that's, for a 5-star, I think we had those expectations. And like you said, I think that first game might have, set that bar way too high for us. Whereas we know he's a true freshman, and we saw that in multiple games his freshman year, especially at away games. And that's where maybe us as Auburn fans shouldn't have put that on him. And he put the pressure on himself too, but there's a point where he just didn't meet those expectations. And that I think that might have been part of the reason he was just like, I think it's about time to, change things up and see where else I can go. Because one of the phrases, and I think Clint Richardson had tweeted this out, and I love this phrase. And he said, Bo deserves success, and I sure hope he finds it. And I think that's true of probably most Auburn fans. They even whether or not you loved him or you didn't, I would hope that you would at least, hope he finds success somewhere. Because he's a true Auburn man, already got his degree at Auburn, and he's moving forward, and he's going to be playing somewhere else besides Auburn next year. Any other kind of thoughts about, why this all kind of transpired? There was just, like you said, a whirlwind this last week or so around it all, but any kind of reasons why you think it happened this way?
There's no way to know. I think without a doubt, he probably was looking at the offensive line and, hey, what are you going to be able to do at receiver? And this might be my last chance to, prove to the NFL. And, as much as it pains us to say, those two spots are not great for Auburn. We'll get into recruiting. We did bring in some guys. But as far as, skill and maturity, that's not a lot in those spots. And those are key for quarterback success. Probably looked at that. We didn't have an offensive coordinator. There's rumors floating around him and his dad, preferred a certain person. Who that is, I don't know. Like or hate Harsin doesn't play around. So like Harson's going to do it his way, and he's going to succeed or fail his way. So he's not going to have anybody tell him who he needs to hire. I'm not saying the Knicks did that at all, but if they even were trying to influence that, they probably didn't get the warm, fuzzy feeling from Harsin on that. So, a lot of factors. Fans were not easy on Bo. I'm probably in the minority. I don't know that was the final determining factor. It didn't help, but I think he realizes fans are going to be hard on you in the SEC anywhere you go. Probably hurts a little more when it's family that's kind of dogging you, which is what we were. We're family to him, and I get that. Probably hurts a little more than if he was at another school, getting called out. And to be fair, Bo won some games for us, and typically quarterbacks get the credit for that. He still never got, like the LSU game. He totally won that for us, and I don't know that he fully got the credit for that. So his credit to criticism was not equal, and that's not right.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. The amount that I felt like people, as soon as Bo did, something wrong, he overthrew a receiver, he, threw a bad pass, and they're like, Bo's the worst. And I'm like, wait, did you just see 5 plays before that where he just scrambled around and got us a first down? Like, there's so many instances of I like to call him Bodini at times. Like, that's part of who he is. And like, he knew how to get the first down, whether it was using his legs or throwing it. And that's something that is just kind of an innate thing that Bo Nix has as a quarterback. So, as much as you probably, like I said, fall on the side of you either hate him or you loved him, or maybe somewhere in between. There's, I feel like we can probably all kind of stand on, we want Bo to succeed. And I think it's probably now we're, Jared and I were a couple of days past after, Bo announcing that he was going to the portal. The more I'm coming to grips with it and kind of seeing that this might honestly be a better situation than what we had thought, because now, this kind of, in my mind, opens up us to go probably get one of the top transfer quarterbacks in the transfer portal right now. Instead of, trying to convince the transfer portal quarterback, hey, come to Auburn and maybe you play, maybe you don't. Transfer quarterbacks don't want that. They want as much of a guarantee as possible that they're going to be that next QB1. So I don't know. I think the more I'm coming to grips with it, I guess. All right, Jared. Also, one of the other things that I just kind of want to talk about, because I think it kind of ties in with this, is Tank Bigsby entering the transfer portal. And then supposedly not. It was reported that he was going and then he didn't. Man, that, again, another one of those like weird whirlwinds kind of within all of that. What's kind of your thoughts on, now Tank finally landing on, hey, I'm staying at Auburn?
Here's where I will make fun of Auburn fans. I said that I don't think the Bo situation, there were Auburn fans that were tweeting during some games like Tank should transfer. Who tweets that about your own school? That people. Think about what you're tweeting, okay? Like I said before, talk to your friends if you want to say that. Don't tweet that. But when I was like, that's not ever going to happen either. And then I saw the news on the same day, Bo, and I'm like, wow, we might be in trouble.
Yeah.
And I was trying to convince myself, okay, well, this could be good. Quez will get more carries and yada, yada, yada. But yeah, you don't want to lose 2 starting players. That just doesn't look good. So I don't know what caused it. I don't know. There's no way to know. I know that Hokinson of On 3 said that it was happening and that Cadillac and Harsin did a really, 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 really good job of recruiting to keep him because he was out the door.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, I legitimately, when I saw that, my heart sank knowing that Bo was gone and Tank was gone and thinking about our offense, which, maybe come next year we have a clean slate and we can, build things up. But honestly, at this point, I don't want to build things up. I want to just keep moving forward as much as we can. And maybe that's a selfish shot of me with that. But either way, I'm definitely happy Tank's coming back. I think the sales pitch is probably, hey, Bobo's a more passing offensive coordinator. He didn't give you as many options to run. And at times it felt like he kind of went away from Tank, even when he was hot. And I think Tank might have felt a little disrespected about that. And I mean, if I was in a situation, I was having the game of my life and coach kept passing the ball, I'd just be like, all right, what the heck? I'm having the best game of my life and running really, really well. So, I mean, I kind of get it. And now I wonder if also, knowing now, especially now we know, or we have a good idea of who the new offensive coordinator with Austin Davis, maybe that kind of ties into it all, that, we're going to commit more to a Tank Bigsby running offense next year. And I would love that. I would absolutely eat that up and get me on the Tank train right now. And I'll be riding it.
Yeah. I mean, I think if Tank gets 10 to 15 more carries this year, we win 2 more ball games. I think we went away from it in the Mississippi State game too quick in the second half, and we absolutely did not use him right in the South Carolina game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we do that, it's 2 more ball games. I mean, it's huge. I mean, and if you're Harsin, here's what you do. You go to him and say, and I'm not knocking Bobo. It's not a knock on him, but it's facts. You go to him and say, look, I feel like Bobo misused you. Here's film of what I did at Boise. Here's what I'm going to do with you. I'm going to be calling plays. Come back. Let's ride one more time. And let's go out with a bang. And I think he was able to probably if Bobo's there, I think Tank might have gone, because you could look on the sideline in some of those games when he was not being used.
Yeah.
You could see his visible frustration.
Yeah. Well, and there were key plays where you're thinking, oh, this is a perfect Tank Bigsby type run right up the middle. Tank's averaging 4.5, 5 yards a carry this game. Just give him the ball. And yet we would go away from that in key times. And if you're a key player like Tank, who he's got that motor and knows what it takes to keep the game, on your side, win the game, that would be a little bit disrespectful. So, I mean, I get it from where Tank was probably kind of feeling.
Hey, Auburn fans, I want to take a quick timeout from this episode to bring your attention to something very special. Here at the E2C Network, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best content for Auburn fans out there. And best of all, it's free to you. But just because it's free doesn't mean there aren't costs, especially when you have a library of hundreds of podcasts, videos, blogs, and more. Many of you have reached out and asked how you can support this network in the past. Well, now I have your answer. It's called the E2C Network Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network. There you'll find a membership monthly reward system where you can sign up for as little as $1 and get different perks at different tiers. Some of those perks include things such as apparel, eligibility to join us on future podcasts, recognition as an E2C Network booster, exclusive communications, and bonus content that is available nowhere else. If you love this network and want to help us keep producing podcasts like this one, please head on over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the E2C Network Booster Club. You can also get there by going to our website, e2cnetwork.com/support. Whether you decide to join or not, we are still so appreciative that you would support us by just listening and being here, because each and every one of you is part of our E2C Network family. Well, that's it. Timeout's over. Let's get back into the episode.
Let's kind of talk about, also, the whirlwind of offensive coordinator at this point. So, at this point, Jared, you and I are 16 days past when we fired Bobo, or Bobo resigned, whatever.
I didn't fire Bobo, did you?
No, I didn't. I wish I did. I had that. I had power.
We as in Auburn. I'm just messing with you.
No, actually, I don't wish I had that power. That's a lot on you.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
But it's been a crazy 16 days. I've gone from, oh, awesome, like we're gonna hire somebody in the next first couple days of this. We have somebody in mind. To, are we actually waiting on somebody? I was thinking maybe a coach that's going to the playoffs or something, like an assistant coach. Are we going after that? And then I was like, are we even gonna hire an offensive coordinator? And we just put in I don't know, some stub in for an offensive coordinator. I have gone in from all the spectrums off for offensive coordinator. Jared, what's it kind of been like for you with all of the, we fire Boba, resign, whatever, and then now it looks like Austin Davis, who's coached at the Seattle Seahawks for a few years, it's looking more like that signs are pointing towards him, at least at this point.
Yeah, there was a point there. I think you and I were mentioned as potential candidates. They were just throwing names out. So it was crazy. I think after the Bo announcement, everything became a blur. You almost forgot we didn't have an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then today they announced, probably Austin. Well, it is Austin Davis. They just hadn't finalized. So, we had the weird, we didn't even talk about, man, this seems like 2 years ago. We didn't even talk about how I think we actually hired Zach Hill, but he couldn't get through compliance because Arizona State has issues. So we moved on.
Yep.
So I don't know. I will a weird caveat to all this. There's stories being written about this now because we didn't have an offensive coordinator. You can only have 10 people recruiting for you. That opened up a spot. We put Trevon Reed, who's essentially an off the field analyst, in that spot. He's from Louisiana, very likable guy and loves Auburn. We landed 2 Louisiana recruits and flipped one from LSU. So there's articles being written now about how this actually may have benefited us not having an offensive coordinator, because Trevon Reed couldn't have been on it. But that's a side story. As far as the actual coordinator himself, it was kind of crazy. I didn't expect him to fire Bobo, even though it probably was the right move. And I don't know much about Austin Davis. The only thing I can say, and then I'll let you start talking. Anytime you can say, listen, I was in the NFL. I left on my own. I didn't get fired. So I was in the NFL. I know what it takes to be an NFL, whatever, in this case, quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And also he's able to say, hey, I've been coaching Russell Wilson. So that grabs your immediately. That's better than saying, hey, I've been coaching Sam Darnold,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm kind of starting to get weirdly excited about it, I guess, from that aspect.
Yeah. Is he a play caller? I don't think so. He's never done it. I think we're going to either, I don't know, somebody else is probably going to be play calling. But I think the experience of him actually playing in the NFL as a quarterback for 7 seasons, and then also being a quarterback coach for a few years after he retired from the NFL, that's pretty impressive. I mean, that's going to, speak loudly, recruiting wise, but also when it comes to, talking to the quarterbacks in the quarterback room, because he's going to be a guy that can say, this is what you need to do. This is what NFL quarterbacks are doing to prepare. If you want to become an NFL quarterback, you do X, Y, and Z. That's the benefit of having a guy like him. And I was kind of looking back at, what did he do while he was at the Seattle Seahawks under Pete Carroll? He had Russell Wilson as his main quarterback, but there were some others under him. And Russell Wilson, he actually helped him improve his completion percentage while he was there. And you could probably credit that to a lot of different things, but I think one of the main ones has to be your quarterback's coach, which was Austin Davis. And that's one key piece that I think is a positive. Like, he knows how to coach the quarterbacks. I think secondarily, he's a young up and coming guy that even Pete Carroll trusted. I mean, he's 32 years old, and Pete Carroll had him under his wing. And I mean, even I think Harsin even talked to Pete Carroll and, tried to get his, mindset on, hey, who is this Austin Davis guy, and should we hire him? So it sounds like they were kind of doing their due diligence to find this guy that probably not many of us had ever heard of, in Austin Davis. And, hey, let's make it, I hope that he becomes a top level offensive coordinator, and kind of develops himself and, becomes one of the great offensive coordinators.
Yeah. And I mean, you hit on this a little bit. He's been able to learn under, probably one of the top 10 NFL coaches out there, maybe even higher than that. He's kind of, I think, getting a little older and going to retire. But, Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll was a great college coach. I realized they got busted for some things, but as far as on the field, they were in Alabama. They were a dynasty. So he's able to learn under him. He's going to bring some pro concepts with him. And honestly, until he's proven wrong, he's going to be able to tell all these quarterbacks, listen, I think you mentioned it. Listen, I know what it takes to be an NFL quarterback. Come to Auburn. I will prove that to you.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently his first phone call was to the quarterback out of USC that just got in the portal, who has one season under his belt of over 3,000 passing yards.
Ooh.
And so I don't know if that West Coast connection, maybe even Pete Carroll had a hand in that USC connection. But yeah, so that was his first phone call. So you just don't know what it's gonna bring, but getting more excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's I think another benefit of he has that connection, extra connections out there. I mean, I don't even think I mentioned this yet, but he came from the same school Brett Favre came from at Southern Miss, which they've pumped out obviously some pretty good quarterbacks. So he knows what it takes from even a college standpoint to make it. And
calling it right now, we're winning the national championship next year because he's got that Brett Favre connection. I'm calling it right now. I'm excited.
Hey, you got too much Ben King in you right now. I'm pretty sure. Barner in you.
Got a little Barner going.
Love it. But yeah, I mean, I think we're at a good spot, at least with Austin Davis. I think once we get the official, sign the papers, we see the deal, and start to see, what he's doing. I think that under Harsin, I mean, Harsin has been so far, made the choices, so far pretty good choices that I can't necessarily disagree with. I mean, he seems like he's, making the right choices that, a lot of people, were kind of saying he should. So, all right. One other kind of just side topping this, we'll kind of finish this one out. I was just, thinking about all this whirlwind, and I mean, it started to make me think, it seems like, Auburn football, and I'm sure, talking about other friends that are fans of other colleges, it seems like because of maybe, I don't know if it's necessarily a transfer portal. It could be, honestly. Football programs seem to be in dysfunction. Like after a season, it's chaos. And I just at least wanted to get your thoughts on like, is that their transfer portal? Is it other things, or are football programs actually dysfunctional and having some chaos in them?
Yeah, I think it's transfer portal. I mean, you hit the nail on the head earlier with imagine everybody in the NFL at the end of the season is an unrestricted free agent. I get why they did it. It's fairness to the players, but man, it's just totally changed the game. We know. I talk about Reed, Trevon Reed. That type, he loves Auburn now, and he's the one that was big on the recruiting trail. That story will never happen again. You know why? He came out of Louisiana as a highly touted defensive back. We brought him, tried to make him a receiver, and for 3 years it just didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Finally flipped him to defensive back, and he did okay. He wound up going to the pros and bounced around a little bit, but he would have transferred out of Auburn. Like there's no way he would have stuck around and fell in love with Auburn. Not in today's game. So those stories are going to go away, and that's a little sad because, he is diehard. He's all in on Auburn. He loves it. But, yeah, it feels like dysfunction. I think as fans, we only see the negative. Like, okay, we've had 5-6 players transfer out. But, we're on the board to maybe get 5 or 6 to transfer in.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to keep that in mind. Like this thing is ever moving. Kids can transfer until July, I think. So there's going to be some more guys leave, and there's going to be some more available to bring in.
Yeah. And so for me, I think it's kind of like one of those we're on. I was describing it's a roller coaster of the off season. I think as soon as the season ends, you see players leave. You think, oh crap, what's going to happen? And then you see us land a couple big transfers and you're like, oh, awesome. We're back. And yet if you kind of look at it, yeah, we did have some, a lower point, but then it picked up real quick. So it's just, sticking along for the ride. It's the old thing. Is your heart enough, healthy enough for Auburn football?
No.
That question.
Let me ask real quick, because this just hit me. Does this make, not just for immediate, like guys you're going to bring in the portal that don't go towards your ranking that will help, does this make rankings matter less, though? Because look at it this way. These schools that were signing number 1 classes every year, like you can't make all those guys happy. And now they don't have to stay. So let's say you signed a number 2 recruiting class this year, but you lose like half of those guys after next season because they're not happy.
Yeah.
So that number 2 then means nothing really. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think it's going to totally change really how the rankings even matter. You got to get good players, no doubt.
Right.
But you get too many of them and they're not going to stay like they used to have to stay.
Yeah. I've heard the argument of, I think that like people are saying that the transfer portal is kind of lowering how important that the early signing period is, or even just signing day. It makes it so that, that's kind of your first school that you go to, but
you're first. It's like,
yeah. It's kind
You're
of like in college,
second.
transferring, moving from one college to, not college, but, hey, I started out, at Auburn in engineering, and then I moved over to the business
you
college.
Get your master's somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it happens, like obviously, but now it's happening in college football at a pretty high level. And, that can be a little jarring, especially like now with the NIL stuff going on. Deion Sanders throwing around, $1.5 million, at, recruit. That's pretty crazy for NIL. And just to come to Jacksonville State, are you kidding me? Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I know, right?
And that's just, the state of, college football right now is it's where, the money is, but then also, it's where this, where the players want to go and not necessarily where these huge classes go to. That's like you said, I still think there's going to be something to be said for, a top 10 recruiting class, because it's hard to get players in, but it's also going to be kind of important for getting guys out of the transfer portal. So it's going to be this balance of, hey, how well can you get guys on early signing day? But secondarily, how can you get guys from the transfer portal in as well? It's going to be this combination of that. All right, Jared, any other final thoughts before you get out of here?
Nope. Just kind of glad that's over.
Yeah.
There's a little calm, I guess, before the next storm in February.
Yeah, for real. Jared, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter at AJAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.